Hi, Mama. Hey, I've got a question for you. Are you being affected by the motherhood penalty? Did you know that mums overall end up being traditionally less successful, yes, than men, but also other females who ended up not having children? My name is Elizabeth Gulliver, and I consider myself a mum championing mums. And I would love to capture the attention of women who have raised young children and who are now getting a little bit of time back for themselves. But instead of allowing that time to be sucked up by what's nearest and most convenient, let's look at how we can create a life that means that the rest of your life you're living from a heart-centered space and that you're living your dreams. Now, I will be interviewing mostly mums who have gone through this period and who are now doing amazing things. So if you are a morally and spiritually focused feminine mama who enjoys traditional family values, this will be great for you. Now, it's my podcast and I love talking about femininity as well. I love talking about spirituality and I love talking about the whole family and how we can win together. Now, if you're curious about that motherhood penalty, then I have put a little quiz together for you that you can get free in my toolkit. You'll find it on elizabethgulliver.com. Okay, on with the show. Hello, everyone. Today I have a lovely guest, a good friend of mine. This is Nicole Waters. Now, she has done some amazing work where it comes to female empowerment in terms of how you unblock yourself, but she goes into nitty gritty of things like genetics as well. It's super interesting, but I'll make sure she tells you because she knows all the details. Her company is called Detox for Good. Nicole, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. I love being here and spending time with you. We
Very
always
good to see
have
you
such a good
again.
time, don't we?
Oh, we do,
Yeah.
we do. So I haven't seen you for a few months now. So just for the viewers' sake, would you just give us a brief overview on your company, and then we'll get into some other nitty-gritty things.
Sure. Yeah, so my company is called Detox for Good, and basically we are a safe space for all people, but I would say that we work primarily with women who have a place to detox what's not serving them in their life.
Yeah.
So we do that in all kinds of ways. I'm a holistic health practitioner. I work with genes and root cause wellness, so on the physical, but we also do a lot emotionally. Most of us have grew up in families where there was like repression or an inability to go into our
Absolutely.
emotional bodies,
Mhm.
and give ourselves permission to feel emotions, and that what I really believe is the root cause of all sort of illness
Yeah.
is this repressive emotional baggage, but also beliefs and thoughts that we have carried down, not just from childhood, what we've learned, but generationally from our ancestors, that things that they had, and that there is proof, in studies that show these beliefs are carried
Yes.
within the cells, in the DNA, everything.
Yes,
So we go
absolutely.
into all of it. We go into the emotions, the relationships, your relationship and love for yourself, your self-care. Also, we work with pets. We work with energy and the energetic aspects
Wow, even
of
with
our
pets, isn't that
energy.
incredible?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we do work with pets because so many pets, like they're little angels, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot going on with them and they carry a lot too and they get sick often. So we offer like Reiki for pets, but also all the natural and homeopathic options to
Wow.
assist your pets um, to be well. So, you're not having to run to the vet and,
Yeah.
maybe spend thousands where we can just look at the food and the diet and then give them a homeopathic. I
Yeah.
have a rescue.
Yeah.
So he's gone through a lot of things and he's not too easy to get to the vet. So it's been a real blessing to
Yes.
just kind of
To
say,
not have to
okay,
go.
yes,
Mm.
and do that. So I'm real passionate about that too because they're little angels. So
Yeah.
we do that, and then how to detox your home,
Yes.
detox your thoughts, your life, everything. So detox for the good of you and then all of the world, the collective consciousness, because once we change, then changes everything around us.
That's amazing. So I
Thank you.
wanted to bring you here because I'm looking for inspirational mums who are now living their best life after having raised sort of young children when children start to give you a bit of time back for yourself. maybe you can tell us a little bit about your journey with motherhood, just briefly what it was like, and when you started to get a bit of time back for yourself, because clearly you've managed to pack in a lot of learning
Oh,
and qualifying. And were you able to eke out some time for that while they were little, or did you have to wait until they were a bit older? Give us a little
sure.
snapshot of that.
Well, I'm a single mom. So I have a daughter from a previous relationship,
Yep.
and she's 18. But then I have a son who's 11. I've had him full time
Yep.
since he's been one. So for me, really, what happened is I was ill at a very young age. I'm 52 now, but at 30, I
Oh
already
my
had an
goodness, you look
ulcer from
amazing. Your
an
stuff clearly works.
well, thank you. You're very kind.
No, I'm not.
I received that very openly
Yes,
from
good,
that nice
good.
compliment. So, but I had a lot of health issues, and no one really knew what was going on, whether it was, traditional medicine or naturopathic or functional medicine.
Yeah.
And just a lot of my labs looked rough. And I started, just kind of diving into spirituality. Like I said, that was like,
And
in the
did you come from a
2000s.
sort of a spiritual background with your family? And you said you were how old? You were quite young at this point. How old were you?
Yeah, I was 30.
Hmm.
I was 30 then. So I ended up like getting sick. I was in a bad marriage.
Mm.
I had a lot of problems. I remember going to see this massage therapist who seemed like psychic, and she seemed to know all this stuff about me and
Wow.
saying I was very fragmented, and I had just gotten diagnosed with an ulcer
Yeah.
at 30.
Yeah.
And she was like, "You're going to have to make some changes or
Right.
you're not going to make it.
Yeah.
You're not going to just make it.
Yeah.
There's too much going on here." So it was really where I went into spirituality. I read
Oh,
Louise Hay's book, How
oh,
to Heal
brilliant.
Your Body
Hmm.
and Your Life. And I started kind of working on those aspects of it.
Yes.
Within like 4 weeks, I was healed of the ulcer from using essential oils and different things like
Wow.
that. And it really was my deep dive. So I came from a Christian
Yep.
background, and so I always felt, I grew up learning that God was separate from us and that we weren't, connected in that way. So even though this stuff was a little woo woo for me,
Hmm.
I realized like it felt right, and I
Yeah.
felt a connection
Oh, it's so
to my
important to
higher self.
trust yourself, isn't it? So we're
Yes.
almost taught to disconnect with the ability to sort of feel our emotions
Yeah.
and believe our
And
gut
our
feelings,
intuition,
our
that gut
intuition.
feeling,
So
right? That
so
we always
good that
get.
you decided to trust that, even if it took you out
Correct.
of what you knew.
I had to kind of, because I
Mm.
was in that point where I was, also like really quite sick. I always had a lot of antibiotics when I was a
Okay.
kid.
Yeah.
My gut was a mess.
Yeah.
And so it just felt right though.
Yeah.
Like I was like, this feels open and expansive.
Yeah.
And this woman's so caring, and, she's been through a lot as well. So she kind of was a mentor to me. And that's where I kind of stepped in and began to meditate and try some different things. And I have a long history in that. Like, I had a yoga studio
Hmm.
after I started with that about a year after. And then I went into Reiki.
Yeah.
I did some trauma coaching,
Hmm.
and then I went into naturopathy and functional medicine.
Wow.
So it was just my own journey, really, of not being well. And then, having children, and then having relationships that were not healthy relationships
Okay. Yeah.
that
That
had
never
allowed me,
helps.
no, no, that from our own models of what we learned in
Mm.
childhood,
Yeah.
that I'd say that I would start to carve out more and more time for myself,
Hmm.
and then listen to books or read books, or just really spend, if I had any time, I would just listen to, like do a little meditation, even if it was 5 minutes,
Hmm.
to kind of hear what my angels, or what my body, my
Yeah.
higher self, this divine one mind,
Yeah.
right? That
Yeah.
is part of everything,
Yeah.
would be communicating with me. So that's kind of my journey. I definitely prioritize self-care,
Mm.
not that it was easy.
Yeah.
I would set time aside where I'd have a sitter,
Yeah.
and I would just go outside and go get food for myself,
Wow. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and just do something nice for me. And that's really where sometimes people have to start, right?
So
Like
you were
we start.
still experiencing your illness after you had your first child, I'm assuming. So
Yes,
how
it
old were you?
really
So you
started.
started to get ill when you were 30. How old were you when you had your first child?
So my first child, I was like 36, 34,
Okay.
around there.
Yeah.
And then I had, like I said, a lot of different things. I always had candida issues.
Hmm.
I was very, very young, had a lot of candida issues,
Yeah.
a lot of stomach problems. It wasn't until I was maybe late 30s that they had said I had to try to find someone because I figured I had a thyroid issue,
Uh-huh.
but no one would would even diagnose it because it didn't look standard
Okay.
in the blood work.
Yeah.
And so it was when I found someone who actually said, "Oh, you do have a thyroid issue," because my mom only had half of her thyroid.
Oh,
That I went on that and then had adrenal fatigue. And it was just like one autoimmune thing kind
yeah.
of after another
Yeah.
with a lot of things.
Mm,
So it was really from that it kind of propelled me into going to natural health for myself so I
right.
could her because I wasn't getting answers.
Yes. And so how did you start to notice yourself healing? And when did you
Yeah.
start to notice yourself healing?
Yeah. I noticed that I was doing a lot of healing with energy, like
Hmm.
energy work. I used to do energy work on my pets.
Mm.
And I would notice like I had a yellow lab. He lived to be 20 years old.
Oh,
20 years old, and he could jump in and out of the car because I started doing Reiki with him. But I
wow.
started to notice the correlation of like affirmations and mindset with what would happen in my body.
Uh-huh.
Like when I would really believe something, or I would do mirror work
Yeah.
where I don't know if anyone knows what that is, but just say
Why don't you
loving
explain it
thoughts.
to us real quick? Mirror work.
Yeah, I would do like time every day where I would sit in front of the mirror and look at myself, and I would notice like what I was actually thinking or the thoughts I was having about my face or my body. And a lot of
Um,
those thoughts would be judgmental thoughts. And so then I would just continue to stare at myself for
yeah.
a period of time
Yeah.
where I could have a loving compassion. And it takes
Wow.
time. Yeah, it
So
takes time because sometimes it's so deep.
how much time, like, did you, from the first time you started your mirror work, were you already able to get into those compassionate thoughts, or did it take a few goes of doing the mirror work before you could?
Took a lot of time
Okay.
because
But
most
you
of the
kept
time
at
it's
it.
just that, yeah, this judgment. And it's
Mm.
also really beautiful. I think I went to some circles where we were doing it together,
Oh,
where we would just look
brilliant.
at this other woman and just like, smile at them and just
Mm.
look into their eyes deep,
Hmm.
deep, deep, because the eyes are right, the window of the soul.
Absolutely.
So you start to notice all the things you're actually saying to yourself
Yeah.
or the judgments you have or ways you've criticized yourself.
Yeah.
And then starting to say, this is probably a big reason as to why I've had the situations I've had,
Hmm.
attracted the people I've attracted, why my health is that way, because I have a lot of reoccurring beliefs
Because this is
and
how I
thoughts
feel
of
about
not
myself.
love.
Wow. And so you actually really noticed, after persevering, it creating some changes within you, with the mirror work.
Yeah, I noticed my body would just feel happier. And I started then to get into like inner child work
Yeah.
and realizing we have these different parts of ourselves within ourselves. And when I would look at myself in the mirror, it came to a point where I could really smile at myself and
Ugh,
being like, I love you, like you're so beautiful. And starting to, instead of seeing the flaws, seeing all the beauty that,
I
my body
love
is
that.
holding.
I love
It
that. I wish everyone
Mhm.
would do this, because I'm so
Yeah.
self-critical. This is a
Yes.
beautiful thing. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it is lovely, and so, it's part of an unwinding process, but it was definitely something that it, like, gave me a point of reference that I
Yeah.
was like, "Wow, if I'm holding this and I'm feeling all these thoughts, I know I'm not the only one, and
Mhm.
where has this come from?" Because I somehow learned it around me or got it through the genes,
Mhm.
even these thoughts and beliefs I have about myself.
Yeah.
So that was part of it, and then as I explored more natural health, I really went into more of, like, the genetic aspects as far as, like, how we get these beliefs
So
from
this is
ancestors.
this is somewhere that you excel now, isn't it?
Yeah,
Um,
yes, thank you.
so tell me more about the genetic part of your work.
Yeah, so, I work, like I said, as, like, in the naturopathic natural health area, but I also believe that so we focus on root cause wellness, like, why is this happening in the body? Like, why is it showing up? What is the why? But a lot of people aren't, noticing is that there's also a big piece in the genetics. So we actually have something called genetic variants.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have heard of MTHFR.
Okay.
It's more well known now. If you were to just Google that,
Yeah.
you would see some stats that say about 50% of people have MTHFR.
Uh-huh.
And what that means is, and I find that if it is neurodivergent or there's, more trauma,
Uh-huh.
it's higher. It's probably like 80, 90% of people have this. So
Okay.
the genes, we have one copy from our mom and one copy from our dad.
Yeah.
And what they can do is they can get these like little cuts in them. And some genes, are fine in that they give us our hair
Yeah.
color and, our eyes and everything like this. But then there's other genes, these specific ones, they're called methylation genes
Yeah.
that are really, really critical for health. Like they're the ones that change DNA to RNA,
Okay.
that are responsible for detoxification, energy production.
Wow.
And when these genes have these slits in them and they're turned on, which happens a lot with trauma, stressful events, just generational, they can cause a host of problems in the body. Like
Wow.
so many problems that you're walking around like with all these chronic
Yeah.
illnesses and they're saying your labs look like a mess. You've got thyroid. Maybe you've had recurrent miscarriages. Maybe you've had
Wow.
tongue-tied baby or lip-tied baby.
Uh-huh.
Maybe you have fibroids, PCOS. I mean, the list goes on and on. Cancer even as well,
Wow.
Lyme. And, and it's because these genes have been turned on
Yeah.
in a way that, they're expressing then. So what we can do is we focus on not just this gene part, but turning them off
Mm-hmm.
through nutrition, lifestyle, but also emotionally. Like, what is the repressed emotions or the emotional pieces associated with it?
Yeah.
Because there is a long history. Like, we can see that, emotions or beliefs, they can go back even as much as 24 generations back.
Wow.
So long.
That's amazing. Yeah.
So really teaching that piece and going into emotion piece and being safe in our body and what are you feeling? Like if anxiety is showing up, anxiety is a messenger of a stuck energy in the body. And so what emotion is that? Is
Yeah.
it shame? Is it just kind of finding out and not even having to know what the belief is, but being able to be present with the emotion when someone's holding space for you safely
Yeah.
to feel it. So I'm a big proponent of like we must feel it
Yeah.
to get through it.
Absolutely.
And I
Agree.
think that there's a lot of other options out there and a lot of people have been in talk therapy in loops and loops
Yeah.
and these are what breaks the loops.
No.
So yes, it's wonderful. So then we also go into all the underlying things as well. I have the functional medicine. I can look at the labs in a different way, see what the regular doctors like most of the time aren't looking if they're not trained.
Yeah.
And then we just start to like take this in a piece, but supporting the genes. So it's so wonderful and it's so important, especially with women.
Yes.
So much mental health issues. There's another gene called COMT, and it has to do with more of the mental things like schizophrenia,
Wow.
OCD,
Yeah.
generalized anxiety.
Yeah.
It actually is very much tied to breast cancer, and that a lot of times because there's so much associated with the breasts
Yeah.
with women,
Yeah.
like, right? The milk and the nourishing,
Yeah.
and we hold a lot there in the fascia
Right.
that we'll find that women who don't detox their estrogen, like the bad estrogen, will get COMT and it'll show up in the breast tissue and all that, which will end up being breast cancer. So
Wow. You can tell
we
so
certainly saw.
much.
No, thank you.
So if
Yeah,
someone was
it's
interested in sort of going through this program with you, what are the steps? How would you
yeah.
figure out their genes?
So basically, first they would just reach out to me at detoxforgood.com and then they would we would do a 30-minute discovery call. So
Mm-hmm.
we would just kind of find out what their goals are, what they're going through, kind of share how I work,
Mm.
that we do go into the emotional piece because that's very important that someone's on board with wanting to go into that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not everyone does it.
Yeah.
It's kind of sometimes even natural medicine will just throw a lot of supplements at you and say it looks all fine there.
Uh-huh.
And
Yep.
yeah, we want people, I want people to get well. I understand this personally because I've had a lot of these gene variants
Okay.
myself. And so then we would talk about what it's like to work together. And then I offer a couple different options of plans to work together.
Yeah.
And we do an intake, we go into the spaces, we look at the functional blood work, and then we would do specific genetic testing if you want to. It's called genetic methylation testing. So
Wow.
there's a lot of like hoopla on genetic testing now too out there
Do they have to
that
be
people,
with you, or is this something you can do sort of sending
yeah,
things
I
in
do
the
it
post?
virtually. We do it all
Brilliant.
virtually.
So it doesn't matter
Yeah.
where somebody is, you'd be able to work with them.
Yes. Anywhere. I work with people all
Fantastic.
over, all over.
Fantastic.
And
Wow.
then we just start to unwind that and unpack it and support the body nutritionally. And then if we see some underlying case, underlying causes, which there always is, like someone had mono when they were a kid
Yeah.
and that virus is under there still causing problems,
Uh-huh.
we just support the person where they're at and we take it step by step and just really prepare the body
Yeah.
and emotionally and spiritually and mentally and just go with their own flow because most people are quite sensitive. And we muscle test too. So I do a lot of muscle testing to see
Brilliant.
what's right for the body as well.
Fantastic. You are one talented woman. So tell me,
You
this
know?
is like you times two. Tell me when that changed. So you're coming out of being unwell. You've had your first
Yes.
child. When do you start coming into your own? And when do you start getting enough time from being a busy mum with your children to then be focusing on yourself and your career?
Yeah, I think that it really depends. I mean, I know like because I have an 11-year-old too, and it was only until he wanted to become more independent, even though I take it along with him, that I think you just kind of do things as you can. Like
Yeah.
you keep learning and learning, the universe is supporting you in the path and when your
Yeah.
time is coming. And then just making sure that you're filling your own well, because if you're not filling it, then you can't be a good to anyone around you. Because
Absolutely. But do you feel like
yeah,
mums really struggle with this?
yes, very much so. And I think there's a lot of guilt associated with
So much
this.
guilt. So
Like,
tell me what were
yeah,
your tips then? Because I think you mentioned a babysitter.
yes, the babysitter, I had the babysitter where I planned her every once a week
Yeah.
on a certain night of the week, even if I didn't have plans with friends. A lot of times I didn't even go out with anybody.
Yeah.
I would just have time for me.
Mm-hmm.
And she was set from like 6 to 8.
Yeah.
She would come. I would just do whatever I wanted to do. Go to like a somatic dance, go get food, do something that would nourish me to make me feel like I was an
Mm.
actual feminine
Yeah.
adult
Yeah.
woman, not
Yeah.
just watching like Barney or, Dora the Explorer,
Oh my
or
God.
anything else because you start to like be
You
like
go a bit loopy,
singing the
don't you? I
songs,
actually
right?
had a period where I forgot how to make chit chat with adults.
Right? Like you're
Yeah.
singing the songs and it's not good
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's not one of the songs you know. So yeah, that was a really big one. I remember like taking times because I learned a lot. I also teach some emotional regulation to kids and adults where I would just I always prioritize my meditation, even
Hmm.
if I had 5 or 10 minutes, because it got me really body aware
Right.
as far as when I was starting to lose my cool
Yeah.
or what was starting to happen in the house,
Yeah.
that I could just go in the corner or in my room, close my door and like hug myself
Yeah.
or swaddle myself in
Oh,
a blanket. I mean, all these things are so important for your mental health,
that sounds
right?
really interesting. It's the
So
first time I've heard that. So tell me, what benefits did you get from the hugging or the swaddling?
well, I think I tell people about this a lot because how many times do you need a hug and there's really no
Yes.
one there to
Yes.
hug you,
Yes. Absolutely.
right?
Especially sort of
There's no one there to hug
mums.
you. And you just, there's nothing safer someone feels that when like they're swaddled or
Uh-huh.
like when they're in the womb,
Uh-huh.
right? So there's all these things. So I used to get the softy blanket and I would tuck it in
Yeah.
and wrap myself really tight. And I would just sometimes even rock
Yeah.
or I would just, hum
Yeah.
because that brings your nervous system back down.
These are
And
great
I would just,
tips.
yeah, it just would be like, it was something nourishing for me. And not only was it for me, it was for my inner
Oh,
child, which
yeah.
they were really the one triggering,
Yes.
right? So it's always how that goes. And obviously, all the moms on here are getting triggered by their children
Yeah.
because that's how it works.
That's
So that
normal.
we know how it works.
That's
They're our
how it
biggest
is.
teachers, right? Yeah. So there's just some wonderful things, but I'm finding, using resources, if I didn't have family, I never really had too much family around and trying to find ways that, we're getting outside,
Yeah.
grounding my feet in the ground
Yeah.
so that I could feel some support
Yeah.
of like just the natural elements.
Yeah.
And also obviously connecting with
y-
other mothers who, maybe they get it. You like have a
Yeah.
connection with them and
Yeah.
they could take the kids for a little bit and you just have some time to go do something, whether it's that or swinging on the swings just by yourself is
Lovely.
very good too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be listening to this podcast today. If you are enjoying the content, then can I just encourage you to like and subscribe? And if you would like to, go ahead and leave a comment. We always like to hear your thoughts. Okay, on with the show. And you
Yeah.
mentioned before about your spirituality. Tell me a bit more, because I've had the privilege, obviously, of talking to you off camera, and you told me some really cool things about when you come into this new place. I don't know if you want to share about what you're doing right now, but coming to this new place
Yeah.
and what you're able to absorb. Are you able to explain a bit of that to everyone?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I really believe everything is energy, right? And so we start to realize that we're not separate from the universe, that the universe is in tandem with us and we're connected to this great source
Isn't that so
of, like I
important
said,
to
what
understand that?
might. Yeah,
Hmm.
that really magical things start to happen and you start to really start to realize how powerful you are.
Hmm.
You're not just like living this life as a mom,
Mm.
supposed to be struggling and
Yeah, I
exhausted and
know.
everything, but that you are really being held and supported by another, an energy that creates everything,
Yeah.
the world, the fish, the birds, everything. So I recently just moved back to Arizona. I lived here 30 years ago. I'm very intuitive, and I was having dreams that we were supposed to come back here.
Right.
So I started having dreams of red rocks and all this stuff. And so I always trust my guidance
Great.
because I have been through the toughest of the toughest spots.
Hmm.
And I know that there's a lot of things that can sometimes let you down or we even self-sabotage ourselves.
Uh,
But
yeah.
the truth never will let us down if we, live in a trusting place,
Yeah.
and that takes shutting things out around us and staying in our lane and making sure we're not influenced by negative things that don't foster our self-love.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was getting these messages to coming out here and I was actually like having feelings like of the way the earth was feeling under my feet and swirls in my feet. And I'm going to tell you a fun little example. We're out here and there's a lemon on our tree out here.
Oh,
And I
lovely.
was sitting out one side one day in the outside and I walked outside and I just, sporadically was like, good morning, family. Because sometimes I'll do that. I'll
Yeah.
just talk to the earth or
Yeah.
whatever. And I'm sitting down and I'm eating, and there's this lemon really up high on the tree. It's like one of the last lemons
Yeah.
because it's so hot. And I think to myself, boy, I really want that lemon. And I wonder how I'm going to get it down from there. And I'm just eating my breakfast. And I was like, yes, I really want that lemon. And about 2 minutes later, it landed on the ground there for me to pick it up. So I didn't
Fantastic.
do anything. There was no wind. It
No.
was just I asked and I
Yeah.
received. And this is the kind of power that we hold
Yeah.
when we are in alignment
Yeah.
with the natural flow of the universe. We
Yeah.
just manifest.
So
So
be careful what
um,
you wish for.
yeah, yeah. So it's important to have your thoughts right, like
Yeah.
everything. And it's true. Even like on the flip side, if I'm angry and I'm like mad at someone or I'm in a bad mood, someone rude will like do something to me in the car,
Yeah.
right? So it's my energy, it's my responsibility to keep it. So it's just been it's very magical here for me. We found out that like where I am is like directly in alignment with like the Giza pyramids and
Wow.
I'm having dreams and visions of that. So I was looking it up. And so
So that's like
I just
a
find it
ley
all
line?
like, I think it's like the star belt or something, like with the
Ooh.
Orient star belt. Yeah, it's very much astrology. I
Yeah.
just know that when I meditate, I'll hear things and then
You
I look it up.
really?
I look it up and then I say, what?
I'm so
Is that
jealous of
true?
how
Like,
intuitive
God.
you are. It's brilliant.
well, well, I mean, it's really is a blessing to find that, but it's also can be very lonely because you don't know everybody who can be at that level
Yeah.
with you. So you have a couple of good friends who are in it. And I just, like I said, when we go through these tough times, we become more close to our own inner guidance system, because I believe we all have ancestors with us all the time and angels that are always guiding us. So we just have to take enough, like have body awareness and slow down enough every so often to tune in, right? Like there's always some reason there. So
And talking about ancestors, could you just elaborate a little bit more on the work that you do with regards to what has been passed down from all your ancestors?
yeah. So as part of the genetic piece, we do know that trauma is passed down from generation to generation, as well as emotions. I was just watching a video today that they actually say when you are in your mother's womb, you absorb all the neurotransmitters and the stress hormones and emotions of your mother. So it doesn't stop there. So you're coming in with your own lessons, but you're also have all that encapsulated within your cells and
Hmm.
your genes as well. And then the mother's mother, and then the mother's mother's mother, and then it keeps going down. So we find that with these genes and genetic variants, or just with anything, that a lot of times these things are showing up now because of the piece of repressed emotions
Mm.
from generations not giving themselves permission,
Hmm.
or even having the strength to be able to go into like, I'm really angry.
Mm.
I shouldn't keep this anger in my body.
Hmm.
How many of us have not had permission as children to feel anger? We would be repressed if we had a temper
Yeah.
tantrum. And so starting to have that space where we hold it to go into these spaces as they're showing up in the body, because ancestrally, we find that usually the firstborn gets the most stuff coming through,
Hmm.
but it also can run off on the second and third born
Hmm.
because there's always a lot of runoff.
Hmm.
And usually it comes forth this way because these are the people that are the cycle breakers. They're the
Wow.
black sheep. They're the strongest ones in the family. They're the ones who have probably the courage that the ancestors didn't have. The ancestors waited for you to come to be able to, break, I would say, these generational curses
Yeah, because
or
I was gonna ask you about this. So once you resolve that in yourself, I'm assuming then that stops with you and you don't pass that down any further.
correct,
And would that
correct.
even be, let's say you already have your children, and
Yes.
after you've had your children, you do that work?
Yes. It still would, because you're always mirroring to your children energetically. So
Hmm.
whatever you're choosing in your life and what work you're doing to improve and evolve as a soul, then they're picking that up so that they're making better choices and
Hmm.
healthier relationships
Hmm.
and those other lessons. So I always say for like brand new moms, like there's a few people that I really follow on this, but they say, look at your trauma now, work through your things now, because your children, right, or else
Hmm.
are going to have all that and you can have less with them. Now, there's some people, some kids that come in and they just have it so that they're meant to like go through it on their path.
Right.
But it is a real thing. It's really a real deal,
Yeah,
generational, healing and trauma. And the
definitely.
genetics play a big, big piece in this.
I,
And yeah.
it's so important. I think, if I remember correctly, Dr. Bradley Nielsen in his body code, if you have work by body code,
Yes.
then it does heal the
Yes.
generational side of things, and it will be from several generations past that you might be experiencing something that needs healing now. So
Yes, and it's so true, Elizabeth. I actually have a book. It's going to be coming out, and once it all gets together, of like client case studies
mhm,
that show like, okay, the grandmother had gallbladder cancer, and all of a sudden this client's showing up with a lot of gallbladder problems,
uh-huh,
and then she's having flashes coming up about it because the resentment or the emotions that were in the gallbladder that weren't ever resolved of
mhm,
that grandmother then passed down through it. So it's so key because the body really does keep score, and it
yes,
it transfers it
it really
down from
does.
each to another. So
So this sounds like a
we
really
can
good. So you said this is a book you're putting together of case
yes,
studies.
yes, it's all the case studies of the clients
Fantastic.
and then how it's shown up. And what we teach also is like how that we can use like tapping, which you're obviously
Yeah,
very familiar
yeah,
with,
yeah,
and different ways to get out of these loops or to clear it from the nervous system,
yeah.
because it's all based off of our nervous system dysregulation. And the genes are a big part of this too, because there's just certain people that don't detox their stress hormones. So
Hmm.
they're always in fight or flight.
Yeah.
They can meditate all day and they just can. I mean, that was my situation. I was
Mm.
always a meditator
Yeah.
and I had a lot of ruminating thoughts and I didn't sleep well for a lot of years of my life. And it was due
Okay.
to these genetic variants.
Yeah.
So once that kind of got turned off and then I could do the right things to be in tune, it all kind of lined up and things got better. So we have a lot of tools that we use to
Mm.
like assist you in, feeling better. And then you also develop this like amazing, compassionate understanding of what the ancestors went through instead of maybe being angry.
Yeah.
I know it did their work.
Yeah.
You realize, wow, they had famines and depressions, and then they had all this narcissistic stuff or rape or sexuality things that went on.
Yeah.
And you are the cycle breaker of that, and it does stop with you. So it's really an amazing,
What a
it's very
gift.
challenging, but what a
What
gift.
a gift to give your ancestors, your family, and
Yes.
society as a
The
whole, because
children.
you coming
Yeah.
coming to the world as your best self, that's the
Yes.
best gift you can give to the world, isn't it?
It is, and I think so many people, right, if they're doing self-improvement work and they're following, they want to make the world a better place.
Mm.
We have seen what goes on out there, and we
Hmm.
see what goes on with children and the disconnection and different things, and so this is why we're coming into this time
Mm.
of really going into these deep places and looking into this because it is such an amazing gift, and if it comes to you, it's because you have the ability, you have the power, you have the gifts, that you have the light in your DNA, I would say,
Yeah.
that it is meant for you to move through it because you have it.
And
Yeah.
what was it like going back? What was it like for you when you were like, wow, I'm actually healed now? How did that feel once you'd done the work and you knew you were healed?
Well, I think that we're always on a journey of more exploration.
Hmm.
So it never just stops, but like, wow, I really did that.
Yeah.
Or, I always say like, really, we can go into any of this because it's just meant for our journey to it just really empowers you.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
You say, wow, I'm really a powerful being. Like
Like roadblocks
I
have been
see
taken away almost.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I always say, like sometimes things are put in our path for a reason and then they're taken away at other times. But it does happen, I think, a lot of times when we're about to step into our path and our service work and what we're supposed to do in this world, that these big healings like happen
Yeah.
because we're meant to have more of our energy
Yeah.
to help and serve the collective. So
Absolutely.
it's just part of the path
Yeah.
and it's a lot of learning. It's very humbling,
Yeah.
very humbling
Yeah. Absolutely.
from it all. But we do, for so many of us, when we come in from dysfunctional households, we have such low self esteem.
Hmm.
There's a lot of shame in the body, whether it's men or women.
Yeah.
And so it's working through that and realizing, well, that's theirs.
Mm.
And I'm who I am. Like, who am I really behind all that
Yeah.
that I was conditioned or told to be?
Hmm.
And when you find out who you really are, wow, there's nothing more powerful, more empowering than that. And especially for kids too,
Absolutely.
tapping in with their emotions,
Yes.
knowing that they can like feel their
Yes.
emotions and get through their emotions.
Yeah.
I mean, when you
And to be
talk about this,
validated.
oh my goodness,
Yeah.
nothing more important than that.
Nothing more important.
Nothing. I always say with school, like, you want a successful, resilient, adaptable
Yeah.
child, it's emotional
Yeah.
regulation, teaching them how to have a communication with their body, their emotions,
Yeah.
how they're feeling, everything.
Absolutely. And tell me about
Yeah.
your relationship with your femininity through the years, like because
Yeah.
I think for mums, it's very difficult to get the time because sometimes it's just as basic as upkeep, and that's
Yes.
the surface level, and then there's an internal
Yes.
level of the feminine energy. Do you feel like
Yes.
you maybe struggled with having the time to honor all of that of your femininity when you
Of
had
course.
children? And
Of course.
how were you able to bring any of it in, or did you have to wait a while? And when you did get a chance, what was that like? What did that look like?
Well, I would dabble in it a little bit when I would have time. I used to do a lot of dancing. Like, I like
Oh,
embodiment
one of my
dancing.
favorite things for feminine energy, dancing. Brilliant.
Yes.
What kind of
So
dancing did you do?
Sometimes I would just like, very much like somatic dancing. Like sometimes I would just go in my room
Yep.
and then I would just like put a scarf on and
Yep.
kind of be naked and watch my
Oh,
body like
fabulous.
move and the curves. And
Yep.
I do a lot of baths
Yep.
and with rose petals and like essential oils and lotions and
Yeah.
things like that. So that was always really good for me
Oh,
because
that's
I would do,
sounding so good. I want to do that right
yeah.
now.
I I'm always about, like, even just, like, us when I was a child, I used to always, like, rub my own arm, and I think it's just so important that we're, getting comfortable with our body and
Yep.
being really appreciative
Yes.
of our vessel for it. So, I
Yeah.
did a lot of that. I did a lot of that, but there were definitely times where, like, I did nothing with my hair. I never curled it. It was hard for me even to get the color and
Yeah.
do whatever and
Yeah.
not wear makeup
Yeah.
because I was so exhausted,
Yeah.
but I did do that. I would go to somatic dance quite a
Mm.
lot, where if I could get out to a group of women and they would like put on music and the lights were dimmed and everyone was just kind of in their body,
Yeah.
moving in ways that they could move or journal.
Yeah.
I also like to like draw. Like sometimes I
Oh,
just get coloring books
lovely.
and color. I'll
Yes.
color and color and color
We
and
just
be
get
like,
in
what
the
do I want to
flow
add
of
now?
that lovely
Yeah,
energy.
and get some good chocolate.
Oh, now you're
Good
talking.
chocolate, right? And, you just, like, have like, your candles, and it's
Yeah.
just your time, and like I said, it's just wonderful. I love that, and
Yeah.
so that's kind of what I would do for myself. I kinda had moved
Lovely.
away from, like, all the other things because it just took so much
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
in regards to
Yeah.
it, but it was always really good and just, being appreciative for my body, and I think as we get older too, like, I've grown to have a great appreciation for my body,
Oh, and
not
I
just
wish
from
that
bearing
for every
children.
woman. I hope every woman starts to feel more and more and more appreciation for her body as she ages, and just to
Yes,
be so grateful that this has done so much for you. It's brought your children into the world, and it's
yes.
it's a beautiful body.
It's a beautiful body and it carries so much, right,
Mhm.
for us. Like, it might be have been tapping on you for years and you never listened to it,
Yeah.
and it's carried you through everything, through every birth, through
Yeah.
every pain, through
Yeah.
every joy, and to really just have a grateful appreciation for our bodies because it's the one we have in this lifetime.
Yeah.
And I think there's just too much out there, in the 3D world, I would say, of like always wanting to shame or
Yeah.
sexualize. It has to be this
Yeah.
way when
Yeah.
each one is so beautiful.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm a big fan of that. And I'm a fan of baths and Epsom salts and having your
I'm
time and
making
someone
some
else.
notes right now to some of the suggestions. I like that
Well, I'm
sounds
looking
good.
for yours because I know you have some too. I know you have.
I
Tell
have
me
some what?
something
Sorry,
good.
I didn't catch the last bit.
I said, I know you have some good ones too. So
Ah,
I want
yeah.
to know yours.
Well,
Yeah.
the dancing,
I want to know
absolutely.
yours.
Absolutely, I love
Yeah.
dancing. And,
Yeah.
if you were to, think about all the mums who haven't quite got through that stage yet of realizing who they are and living their best selves, their best lives, what would be
Yeah.
some of the tips that you would love to give other mums?
Well, my first tip would be that if you can, I would have you arch, like just set aside a minute or two or 5 minutes, like first thing in the morning. I know that sometimes we're so tired that you don't want to get up and you're like, oh my God, 5 minutes. But like what we start in the beginning of the day really carries us throughout the whole day.
Good, yeah.
So when we start with already self care and taking some time, whether it's like laying on a yoga mat outside or, having your tea next to you and then just like focusing and like witnessing your body and
Mhm.
just sitting.
Yeah,
That's a lot right there.
yeah,
It's so beautiful,
yeah.
right? So that's a beautiful one. Also, like join some women's circles
Mhm.
or experiment. There's so many things out there, like within spirituality or online things if you can't get out of the house, to etch out some time that you can get with community
Yeah,
because community is healing
yeah.
and just sharing. They have these. I used to run one long time ago, but red tents, right, where women would just go in. I guess I'm not really a Christian, like religious person, but it's basically from the biblical days. And when women would bleed, they would all go in this tent together and then they would collaborate and talk about all the things going on in their lives. Yeah.
I haven't heard of this. This is
Yeah.
amazing.
Red tents. They
Where
still
where
have
do
them
you do
around.
this?
You can do them anywhere. You just look it up in your town. Like I know Florida has other places, and there's usually someone who holds a space,
Yeah.
and it's called the Red Tent, and they do it like
Red
monthly,
pen.
and they have a theme, and then you just show up, and then they, like it's just a way of connection with other women.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a potluck, but you just kind of are able to share what's going on with you, how that, there's a theme and what's going on with your life
Yeah.
and what you struggle with, and other women and other sisters like holding space for you
Yeah.
to share that,
So
because that's
even if
very
you have to get
powerful.
that babysitter in, that, like you were saying, so then you
Yes,
maybe
yes,
join one of these red tents to commune with
yes,
other.
and get a
Because
babysitter.
it's like sharpening the saw, isn't it? Like Mel
Yes,
Covey's 7 habits. So the last one is sharpen the saw, because we can't just give all the time. And
no,
most mums are in the habit of doing that, and we just get exhausted. So little things like that, if you do get a chance,
right.
sharpen the saw and then go back to your family
Sharpen
with
the saw.
renewed vigor, renewed sort of
Yeah.
joie de vivre, then you're gonna be more present for them.
Exactly, and you're not gonna lose it so much because you
Yeah,
have fed yourself, right?
yeah.
And so it's such a good way to put it, right, Elizabeth? Because, like, when you start noticing you're getting off the handle and
Hmm.
it's happening more often,
Hmm.
that's a perfect time where you're like, "I'm booking every red tent for
Yeah,
every month and
yeah,
these times, and then these other weeks, I'm going to do this," and you just plan it. Even
yeah.
if you don't know what you're gonna do,
Mm,
and you don't cancel when you don't know what you're gonna do.
yeah,
You just go wing it
yeah,
and find something
yeah.
that is just rewarding yourself even to be a mom.
Yeah.
Reward yourself.
Oh,
Reward
amen to
yourself.
that. Let's reward
Yeah.
us,
You
ourselves,
don't know
each
how many
other
months
for
I
being a
went to
mum.
go get a dessert. That's all I do. I go pick up a dessert and I go there. There was this, like, I don't know if you remember from Sex and the City, like so many years ago, there was one of the movies and they had said, all I dream about is going to a hotel and having a 7-Up by myself, or Diet 7-Up. And so that, I always
Yeah,
remembered that, like, I was like, yeah,
yeah,
what that's like going somewhere
yes,
just to be
yes,
just quiet
yes,
and having something that you enjoy and
yeah,
be present with
yeah,
and rewarding yourself.
yeah.
And I'm telling you, that's enough. That's
Absolutely.
enough.
Well, it is enough. You get to a point where you've had enough of that, and you can go
Yes.
back happy.
Yes, of course. Go back happy. So it's because you have to feed yourself. So, and then they're all like, wow, what happened? And I guarantee you, you do that often, your
Mm.
husband might be like, when's the next one? When's the next one? How can I help you with this? Do we need to
Yes,
schedule more days
yes, let
for
me
you? 'Cause
support
then
you.
everyone's happy. Everyone's happy.
I love that. Yeah. Happy,
I love
happy
it too.
mum, happy family. Definitely.
Yes. Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
Nicole, I find you absolutely fascinating. I think
Thank you.
I could talk all day with you. Now,
Oh, thank
for anyone
you.
who's listening who probably had their interest piqued, and of course they would, on the work you're doing, we're going to put some stuff
Thank
in the
you.
show notes, but it's detoxforgood.com.
Yes. The detox, the number 4, good.com.
Yeah.
And you can just reach out there and we'll connect with me. And I would be just so honored to assist you and connect with you on your journey and hold space or whatever's going on in any way. So I really look forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would definitely recommend, Nicole, you are definitely a woman's woman. Every woman should feel safe with you, and it would be such a nice experience for them. So thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much. I really, really enjoy our
Thank
chat.
you. Thank you. It's an honor. And I just love this podcast and what you're doing out there. So
Oh,
let it shine. Let it shine. Let fellow women shine.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Yay.
you. I'll see you soon, my lovely.
All right.
Wow.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Once again, thank you so much for having taken the time to watch this podcast. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you have some comments, I do love reading them, so go ahead and leave a comment for me. If you're a mum and you have an inspirational story that you think would help other mums, then why don't you get in touch with me at info@mamastimetosshine.com so you can also be on the podcast. And if you haven't liked and subscribed yet, please go ahead and do so. Okay, till next time, bye.